In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please. Consider the lilies of the field, the birds of the air. They get along just fine. Do you not think God cares about you the way he cares about them? On first thought, maybe, Jesus' advice seems impractical. For those of you who remember, sort of like a 1960s flower child. Irresponsible even. We're not flowers. We're not birds. We have many real cares and worries. We may sort of understand what Jesus is trying to tell us, but we probably consider our lives often to be the exception of any help that Jesus can offer. Our Bible readings this morning are so positive. That wonderful creation story that Jim read after each day. And it was good, and it was good, and it was good. So we need to remind ourselves of the creation around us and how good it is, and how good we are as part of it, believe it or not. Yet our worries and our fears sometimes tell us the beauty of God is actually only an illusion, not something we can really grasp onto. So Jesus speaks in very practical language. He addresses what keeps us from enjoying God's creation and our own marvelous lives in it. And it's worry. Worry mars our lives. And though not exactly the same, fear is closely related to it. Fear and worry together. Fear is probably the more basic emotion, and worry, sometimes to the point of anxiety, is the result of our fears. The danger, which Jesus is alluding to in his words, is that fear and worry will dominate our lives. They'll become the chief thing. They'll become a way of living. And the way of God is completely against that. It's a bit of northern philosophy, me being a foreigner, that I just found delightful when I first came here, and still do. After I've been told of a tragedy or a great worry someone has, well, no use complaining, you've got to get on with it. I don't think you hear that in the South. I think it is a northern thing, not positive. But it was certainly foreign to me. You may see it as a throwaway line, but it does speak to a way of living. There is an affirmation there, perhaps a touch of resignation, that life actually is worth living. And I see it as a way into what Jesus is trying to say. Worry, of course, is a part of our lives, and it's worth expressing. It shows we care. But in the end, it solves very little. We need to get on with life. And Jesus also starts here, but takes it even further. True contentment, true peace will come when we cannot just let go of our worries and our fears, but live life to the full and trust that God will take care of us. It's a big step, especially if you're in a dark place. Yet, Jesus' advice is too important to just dismiss as impractical or naive. If you don't think that worries and fears can rule and destroy our lives, go to the Middle East, like I just did. It's a lovely place, a hauntingly beautiful land in so many ways. Parts of it are a little changed from the time of Jesus, so you actually understand his stories and examples by being there. Yet, as we read the Gospels, Jesus also confronted aggression, conflict, unrest, and you see it there still. We see now, currently, how both societies, Israeli and Palestinian, have fears of the other which keep them from achieving any sense of stability and peace. A peace which, in their heart of hearts, for the majority on both sides, this is what they desire, it would seem. So you see these extremes in the Holy Land. It's a land that draws me and repels me. Thousands of years of conflict cannot be resolved in a short time, but still one hopes, and people who live there hope, that peace is truly possible. And here, in that, political turmoil doesn't stop me from exploring and seeing the sights. And one of my most joyful moments when I was there a few weeks ago was with a taxi driver in the countryside outside Bethlehem. Because although it's a divided land, and there are areas where both Israelis and Palestinians are forbidden to go in each other's territory, a foreign tourist can actually go anywhere they want, if you dare. So I knew of this ancient monastery out in the desert, built on the side of a mountain, very remote, though in actual fact only about 7 or 8 miles from Bethlehem. It's called Mar Saba, or Saint Saba, and I've always wanted to see it, and so this was the time. And many people told us the only way to get there is by a local taxi, or by walking, but we didn't want to do that. The taxi driver took such pleasure in the land where he lived, such joy. Not because of the poverty that's around there, which is rife, and a political nightmare of a situation. Those disadvantages didn't mar his obvious joy in his life, and where he lived, and that he wanted to show it to somebody. He complained a bit as we careened through these tumble-down villages with donkeys running up in front of us and things like that. Curvy, potholed roads out into the desert. And he said in perfect English, "These roads are crap." And he laughed. Well, actually, his language was more colorful than that. Believe it or not. And he led us out a few hundred yards before the monastery and told us to take the footpath the rest of the way, which would offer the most amazing views out over the desert, which it did. Quiet, serene, with only desert hills as far as you could see. And this very isolated monastery, home to some of the earliest Christians, including John of Damascus, for instance, from the 4th century, who lived there. We still sing some of his Easter hymns. Hymns he wrote there, out in the desert. He also wrote on the controversies of his day, the relationship with Muslims, whether churches should have elaborate rituals or more simple style. He wasn't out of touch with the cares of the world. He just felt the love of God transcended them somehow. John of Damascus seemed to understand well what Jesus was trying to say about the lilies of the field, the birds of the air. We toured through the quiet monastery, then met our happy taxi driver who took us back to the chaotic bustle of Bethlehem. Our worship and faith in Jesus Christ speaks to something better than the worries and the fears that weigh us down. Jesus' vision is not an impractical one. He bids us, even in the worst of times, to trust in God, well aware that our worries and our fears are real, but also aware that they must not control us, because He is with us. And speaking of fears and anxieties, you might have had a chance to look at a notice that's in our notices today about coronavirus, maybe not directly applicable to us, but just a reminder of winter illness and hygiene in our communal life together. And so the bishops have handed down some advice, and it's there for you to read. It doesn't mean that we should stop passing the peace or taking communion. It's just to be aware of what we might do to not infect others if we're not feeling well ourselves. So have a look at that.